All right, last part of the extra credit for quarter 3, even though that says quarter 4. Remember, we got to show our work on both sides. Hope you're listening. Let's write volume up at the top if you're listening. Okay, little review for solving inequalities. We're going to so the 4x is not a part of the distribution, so I'm going to bring it down. This is like, let me get this done. I don't know why this doesn't want to auto do. Okay, we're going to distribute the negative 2. So when I distribute to the first term, I get negative 2x. Careful here. When I distribute to the second, negative 2 times negative 4 is positive 8. Inequality, we're going to distribute again. We get 18 plus 6x. Okay? We're going to combine like terms here on the same side of the inequality. 4x minus 2x is 2x. Bring everything else down. Remember, with inequalities, it's important that the x's be on the left side because the inequality needs to be written correctly in the correct order. So we're going to subtract 6x from both sides. And I get negative 4x when I combine there. Plus 8 is greater than 18. Now I have a two-stepper. I'm going to subtract 8 on both sides. I'm out of room. I'm going to come up here. So I have negative 4x is greater than, and when I combine here, I get a 10. I'm going to divide both sides by a negative 4. With inequalities, when I divide both sides by a negative number or multiply both sides by a negative number, the golden rule kicks in, and this inequality symbol is going to switch direction. So I have x is less than negative 10/4, which reduces to 5/2. Okay? All right. Little review of parallel and perpendicular lines. So, parallel lines have the same slopes. Let's write that. Perpendicular lines, the slopes are opposite reciprocals. Opposite meaning the signs will be different. Reciprocals mean the fractions will be flipped. So, find the slope of the perpendicular line to this. So the first thing we've got to do is find this slope. Well, this is in standard form. So remember, to find slope in standard form, it's opposite of a over b. Now, you could solve for y and then pull your slope out as mx plus b, but it's just easier to do opposite of a over b. So opposite of a would be negative 4. B is negative 2. So the slope for this line is 2. Well, I want the perpendicular slope, so I need to flip it, and see 2 is the same thing as 2 over 1. So if I flip it, it would be 1/2, and I need the opposite sign. So the perpendicular slope here is negative 1/2. Okay? Again, find the slope of the line, this time parallel, so I am going to keep the slope. And notice this is in y equals mx plus b form, except for they switch this around. So the number in front of the x, the coefficient in front of the x, is the slope. It's negative 3/2. And that would also be the slope of the parallel line, because parallel lines have the same slope. Okay. Now, we're going to write an equation. We've got a line in y equals mx plus b, passes through a point, 1, 6, and is parallel to this line. What is the value of b? What is the value of b? So, y'all, it's a funky way of asking a question, and we're just going to go through this. So we're plugging into the point slope form that we learned about a few weeks ago. And we have our point to plug in, but we need our slope. Well, it's parallel to this line, so I'm going to pull my slope, and because it's parallel, I'm going to keep it. I'm going to keep my slope of 4. So 4 goes here. We're going to plug in our opposite signs for these ordered pairs. That's a positive 1 for x, so it's going to be x minus 1. Actually, I wrote that there. It should be x sub 1 in the formula. For my y, it's a 6, so when I write it here, it'd be y minus 6. Now, the reason why I taught you we need to simplify this is because notice this problem is telling us to simplify it, and when we do, it wants the value of b. So I'm going to distribute, and when I do, I get 4x minus 4. My last step is to add 6 to both sides. So I get y equals 4x, and when I combine, I get plus 2. This is my b, so the answer is 2. The value of b is 2. Okay? All right. I think we did one of these one time. We may have done this on the first test. But anyway, notice they're giving us a function, but they have left out the k here. Okay? And then they're giving us this. F of 12 equals 9. Well, y'all, what I do is, that is an x value, and that is the y value for this function. And notice this entire side, f of x, that stands for the y. I'm going to plug the 12 in on that side. X, I'm sorry, my fault. This is the y. I'm going to plug a 9 in here. For x, I'm going to plug 12 in, and then I'm going to solve for k. Okay, so if you're writing instructions, we're going to plug these in. Plug that in, and we're going to solve for k. So let's write those instructions, okay? So my 9 goes on this side, or on the other side of the equal sign. Then I've got negative 2/3 times, and I'm going to plug my x value in, and then plus k. So now I just simplify and solve for k. Well, negative 2 times 12 is 24. And 24 divided by 3, it's negative 24. And negative 24 divided by 3 is negative 8. And I'm going to bring everything else down. And now I'm going to add 8 to both sides to solve for k. And I find out the missing k value is 17. Okay, you're going to do the right-hand side just the same way. If you're listening, let's see. Draw me a smiley face at the top. Okay. All right. The week of March, well, it's probably going to be into April. We're going to do literal equations, okay? So you may not have seen this. Literal equations have more than one variable in them. Notice we got a t and an n and a p, and basically we're just rearranging them. So notice this says solve for p. It says solve for p. Okay? What I'm going to do while I solve this is I am going to parallel this with an equation that you would probably know. Okay? So, let me just do an equation you might know. 10 equals 4 times 2 plus x. Let's do that. Okay? So, if I had asked you to solve this, obviously we would solve for x because it's the only variable there. You would tell me to first distribute. So, y'all, here we're going to distribute. It follows the same rules. Okay? Same mathematical rules as solving equations. So here I would distribute 4 times 2 and get 8. Distribute 4 times x and get a positive 4x. Okay? So here I'm going to do the same thing. 4 times 6n is 24n, and 4 times p is a positive 4p. So notice we're following the same things as solving linear equations. Okay, next. The next thing, if we were solving for x, is you would tell me we're going to subtract 8 on both sides. So, just like here, I'm solving for p. I need to move this entire term, so I'm going to subtract 24n on both sides. Okay? Okay, notice, I cannot combine these. One has a t and one has an n, so I'm just going to write it. T minus 24n equals 4p. Here, if I was solving for x, I would divide by 4. And notice, since all I have is a numerical value here, I don't know why this keeps getting fuzzy, I can just simplify that, and I can get a numerical answer. Okay? Here, with literal equations, I don't get a numerical answer. I get an expression with variables in it. So my last step here to solve for p is I'm going to divide by 4. So notice I can't really simplify this. So my answer is p equals, because it told me to solve for p, and I solve for p, t minus 24n divided by 4. So that's my answer. So I'll say again, with literal equations, you do not get a numerical value. You get an expression that has variables in it. Okay? We solved for p in terms of t and n. Okay? All right. Here's a literal equation that some of y'all may recognize. It's the surface area of a sphere, 4 pi r squared. I think the surface, yeah, 4 pi r squared. Okay, so solve for r. So we are solving for r. So what that means is I want r all by itself. So I have to remove or move the 4, the pi, and the squared. Well, the 4 and the pi are separated by multiplication. They're separated from the r by multiplication. So I'm going to divide, and I can divide by both the 4 and the pi in the same step. It'll be just fine. I'm going to divide by both the 4 and the pi in the same step. So the 4 pi cancels out on top and bottom, and I'm left with r squared. And on this side, I'm left with s divided by 4 pi. Okay, so basically what we need to know is that a square root and a square are inverses of each other. So that's the way you undo a square root is you square something. The way you undo a square is to take the square root. So I have not completely solved for r because I got that square on there. So the way I undo a square is by taking the square root of both sides. So I'm going to take the square root of the right side and the square root of the left side. The square and the square root cancel each other out, leaving me with an r. And then remember, I'm just going to have for my answer an expression with variables. The square root of s divided by 4 pi. All right. Okay. Last one, finding the zeros. And we know that the zeros are the same things as x-intercepts. They're the same things as roots. And we know we are finding the solutions to the quadratic. And we're going to do it by factoring. Here, what is the value of the smaller zero? We've got to be very careful what these questions say, especially on standardized tests. So, first thing we're going to do is factor. And this one, we can pull out a greatest common factor first. The greatest common factor is 2. I'm going to set up a parenthesis. I'm going to divide by 2, divide by 2, divide by 2. So I have x squared minus 4x minus 12. And now I have a trinomial, which is a 2 by 2 box. Put that there. Put that there. When I multiply together, I need the negative 4 on the bottom. I'm looking for my magic numbers. My magic numbers are negative 6 and positive 2. Let's put x's in here. Positive 2, negative 6. Greatest common factor is x. Here it's negative 6. Here it's x. And here it's 2. Don't forget, this is part of my factor. So I've got a 2 on the outside. I've got an x minus 6 as one of my factors. And I've got an x and a 2. And when I look back, the signs are different. Okay? I'm going to set each one of my factors equal to 0. So the first factor is 2. 2 equals 0. Then x minus 6 equals 0. Then x plus 2 equals 0. This is an extraneous solution. It doesn't make sense. There's not a variable in it. Here, I'm going to add 6 on both sides. So one of my zeros is a 6. Here, I'm going to subtract 2. So my other 0 is negative 2. The answer is the smaller 0. So the smaller 0 is negative 2. This is my final answer. Okie dokie. All right, you're going to do the right-hand side, and then at the top, you can write right here if you're listening, I'm done. You guys have a great day.